not upgrade your wizard monkeys before watching this video. Today we're actually going to be testing every single wizard monkey, like we've been testing other towers in our previous videos, to see if their upgrades are actually worth it. So let's jump right into it. Now the way this is going to work is we're going to use this beautiful map, and let's get started. So let's drop the wizard monkey right here, like we're going to do with all the towers, and let's get it going. And then we're going to start this test off with the 000 wizard monkey, just to kind of set a baseline to how much damage we can actually deal. And stick around to the end, because by the end of this video you will have exactly the amount of damage each tower does, and this way you'll always beat chimps in the best time possible. Okay, so after too long testing all these towers, here are the numbers. So the red number is the amount of damage the tower was able to do in 100 rounds, the yellow number is the overall cost of the tower, and then finally the orange number is how many pops it got per coin spent. So with the first tier, we can see a clear winner of the middle path. Onto the second tier. Now when it comes to the second tier, the middle path was the clear winner with an average damage per coin spent of 32. The bottom path did go up from 7 to 9, and the top path stayed at 9. Now with the third tier, we had a clear winner again of the middle path with an average of 37 pops per coin spent. However, the other third tiers also had some very solid improvement. Onto the fourth tier. With this tier, we see a lot of solid improvement in the amount of damage dealt, but the only path to actually improve in damage per coin spent is the top path, going to a 27. You'll see the middle path dropped and the bottom path dropped as well. Finally, onto the fifth tiers. With this, I was very impressed to see that the top path was actually the winner. So the top path had an average damage per coin spent of 23, middle path 16, bottom path 10. I am very disappointed in you, but I do want to make sure and very clearly that for the middle paths, we used all the abilities as much as we could, and for the bottom path, it does get stronger the more towers are around it. Now onto these super monkeys.
Now that's a lot of damage!
Okay, and it's time for the numbers. So the first tier had some interesting results. Now getting started, the original Super Monkey, the 000, did 18 damage for every coin spent, whereas if we upgraded it, none of the upgrades actually did any better, relatively of course. So the best one was definitely the middle path, and moving on to the second tier. So here we can see that the numbers did not change a lot. The bottom path remains to be the worst when it comes to damage per coin spent, and the middle path remains to be the best. Again, this is a very expensive tower, so these things are kind of to expect at this point. With the third tier, we're seeing a solid improvement in the middle path and the bottom path. Very good improvement from the bottom path, but in the top path it is still going down, and you're gonna see this as a consistent theme here. So let's keep going. So onto the fourth tier, these results were very interesting. Now first of all, I want to look at the top tower. So top path, if you do not sacrifice towers, it is basically useless. There was not much of an improvement from the previous upgrade, but when it comes to the middle and bottom path, it was a slight downgrade, but again, they were doing some decent damage. On to the most disappointing results. The true Sun God is absolute trash unless you sacrifice towers. Now again, sacrificing towers would make it more expensive, so I didn't do that for this test, but when it came to the fifth tier, the bottom path was absolutely deadly, not leaking a single balloon. Now keep in mind, this was a short map, so it makes sense for that to happen, but yeah, go bottom path.
Monkey.
I'm in danger!
No, don't do it.
Oh, yeah.
On to the most disappointing monkey so far in all of the towers you've tested, the ninja monkey. So here, things got a little complicated. So the initial ninja monkey did an average of 14 damage per coin spent, and it really went downhill from there. So let's go on to the second tier. Funny enough, it gets even more disappointing, with the middle path going as low as 6 pops per coin spent. Now you have to remember, the middle path is a support path, so it kind of depends on how many you get, but really, what are you supporting if the damage is so low? On to the third tier. Now with the third tier, we did have slight improvements, especially for the top path. It did get quite a bit better. Now going on the topic of what are you supporting with middle path, ideally if you're supporting a top path ninja, sure, but again, the damage is just so absolutely low that it doesn't really make sense to go for the ninja at this point. Now the fourth tier is a little bit different. Middle lane is still middle upgrade, sorry, is a little trash, but when it comes to the bottom, it really has picked up for an average of 13 damage per coin spent. spent, and even top at 12 damage per coin spent is pretty solid. And then finally to the biggest part of the disappointment, the 5th tier. So when it came to the 5th tier, it was actually kind of downhill for everyone. It was a slight improvement on the middle path from 1 to 2, but still pretty trash. And then even with the top and lower paths, it was also disappointing. On to the Alchemist. Now, the Alchemist I'm going to test in a different way. So with the Alchemist, I'm going to be using the 5th tier Ninja Monkey, and I want to see how much improvement it gives it for its top path, because that's what the Alchemist is in the top path, right? So let's get into it.
Ew.
You stupid.
Oh my god, bro.
Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man?
Invited this man.
Get your ass on, boy.
Okay, and after a very long testing party, it's time to line up the data for the Alchemist. Now, this one was fairly interesting, especially because of the top path. Now, I'm thinking maybe I should have turned off pets. Okay, so the results were fairly underwhelming, I gotta say. Now, the initial Alchemist did have an average damage per coin spent of 6, and the rest were at 5, 5, and 4, so it wasn't really good, but you gotta remember, early stage, the Alchemist isn't exactly your damage dealer. Now, this does not apply to the 2nd tier. The 2nd tier was very interesting. So, top path did deal an average damage to coin spent ratio of 4, but it did increase overall damage by 28% of the other tower. Now, when it comes to the middle path as well, you saw that jump to 12, the average damage per coin spent, so the damage did increase. Not a lot you can say about bottom path. On to the 3rd tier. So the 3rd tier was actually fairly interesting. Now, it is interesting to see that the damage doesn't really increase when it comes to the top path Alchemist. However, it did increase damage by 130% of the Ninja Monkey. Moving on to the middle and bottom path, it is very disappointing at 4 damage per coin spent. Moving forward, on to some more disappointment with the Alchemist. So unless you're going middle path and using the ability at every possible second you can, it really isn't that worth it unless you're also upgrading another tower. So top path, 220% increase in damage. That is very, very good considering the path before was 130%. So on to the final 5th tier. So in the 5th tier, it was actually pretty interesting to see that the top path of the Alchemist only did a 300% increase in damage. So Perma Brew is something you get when you have multiple towers and you're not just buffing one tower. Beyond that, it was actually really disappointing to see that the middle path didn't really do much better than the 4th tier, so the 5th tier was like, meh. But the bottom path was absolutely legendary with over 1 million damage. This was crazy. I did not expect it to get this good, but again, an average pop ratio of 22, so that's amazing. Finally, onto the last tower, the Druid. Now, this one was very, very interesting. The Druid had some very impressive results. The initial 000 Druid had a pop to cost ratio of 24, and it didn't really go up from there, but for the bottom path, I don't know how the upgrade actually caused him to do less damage. On to the 2nd tier upgrades. Now, the 2nd tier upgrades were a little underwhelming. I think the only decent one was top path, but the numbers are as you can see on the screen. And let's move into the 3rd tier. Now, the 3rd tier was very impressive. So the 3rd tier, we found that the middle path was actually pretty deadly. So interestingly enough, I think if you can take care of Moabs and have a middle path 3rd tier Druid, you could get pretty far in Chimps and in other games. And now let's jump to the 4th tier. So when it came to the 4th tier, it was very interesting to see that the middle path Druid did not actually pop that many more balloons. Now, this is an important fact. So if you're playing Chimps, do not get the middle path upgrade to tier 4 unless you're going straight to the tier 5. Otherwise, the numbers were fairly low and disappointing. Let's go to the final tier. Prepare for some serious disappointment. So when it comes to the best 5th tier tower, it was clearly middle path. However, it was interesting to see that the top path did almost 1.2 million damage, which is really, really solid. But then I was very disappointed. So the bottom path will do more damage, but it does take longer. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good one. Bye now.